Fabulous. And it's great because what we have in this group, and everybody here is in this group, we have people in this group that have attended our in-person training and been certified. We have people that have attended our online training and been certified. We have people currently going through our online training, working their way through to certification. And we also have people in this group that are already committed onto our in-person course in June next year. So it's a fantastic mixture, a melting pot of people. And we're very, very honoured to see you here. So every now and again, we have a little chat live, kind of about the work that we do, because the work that we do is not very well known. It's a huge thing at the moment. We all know that mental health, anxiety is a worldwide epidemic. It's awful. There's so many people suffering, and the more and more people that know that perhaps you don't really need chemicals as an answer, there is a different way that you can work with energy, something that we would think is the spiritual way, clearing energy. We have evidence and experience that we can clear people that are suffering within an hour, and they can be located anywhere in the world. So we will go into that. It will become part of our conversation. But we're just going to have a little chat this evening about the question really is there another consciousness interacting with the client's field? And the reason why we've titled it that is because we have people that have come through certification already who are hypnosis qualified. And they say that hypnosis especially doesn't deal with their clients when they have attachments, when they have these kind of blockages in the energy fields that we specialize in. We also have students going through the training process right now who are also querying the same thing. Likewise, we have people emailing us, asking us if this work helps people with different psychological practices, as well as hypnosis, because when they come across somebody who has an energy block or an attachment or something like that, they struggle to know how to deal with it. So we've invited those people to come onto a chat, and here we all are. And this is why we're here. So it is about just having that conversation, bringing it out into the open a little bit more, because the way that it works, the more and more people that know about this, the more and more people use it, the more and more people see the success, and the more and more people don't need to go into some kind of institution. Energy work can be cleared from a distance safely. For us to start, I'm going to bring in Andy. Andy, I think, is the best person to introduce himself first and come into it. And I'll hand it over to you, mate.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Jonno. Well, that was a really good intro. I think Jonno's comfortably set the scene, really. Again, quite a few of you, obviously, we know. In fact, probably half of you we know very well, and you know us. So, so you know the way we do things basically is real. We don't have scripts. We don't kind of run transcripts and things. We basically talk, because John and I, turns out, are quite good at talking, as it would seem, which again is probably why we've been picked to do this work, because this is all about communication. And I think this is the key, really, from my perspective. If we kind of rewind back, sort of 2011 timeline is when I first met Dr. Terence Palmer. And he basically had this kind of grand idea that a lot of spiritual health issues, or a lot of mental health issues as well, really, were spiritually based. So the focus and the source was a spiritual problem. And effectively, the mental health sector wasn't very good at dealing with the spiritual dynamics of that sector, effectively. So he wanted to prove, in his words, really, that spirit possession was a thing, not really talked about particularly. And again, we know the Hollywood films and the narrative that we see from a kind of Hollywood perspective, but the idea being that effectively a lot of the problems that people exhibit when they have mental health problems, especially kind of extreme ones, when we're thinking of people that are committing suicide, self-harming, intrusive thoughts and voices, schizophrenia, these are really like terrible things to go through. And obviously the people that are experiencing those things really are kind of stuck with not many choices. Where do you turn? Who can you talk to tell people you're having intrusive thoughts, intrusive voices, feeling at the edge or on the edge, I guess. So Terry wanted to be that person that could pioneer that conversation. So he went back in time. He went back to sort of Frederick Myers and William Baldwin and all of the kind of people that have trampled, I guess, tracked the kind of SRT, spirit release therapy path effectively, and kind of got to the point that he wanted. His vision was to create an organization that basically trained what he called at the time sort of the best practitioners in the world to effectively light this path. And his objective was where other therapies end, this is where our therapy starts. And him and I sat round and we had a bit of a laugh about it and said, wow, that's kind of a big ask. And we're just two guys sat talking with ideas on where we were and what we did. But of course, I was working as a psychic surgeon at the time, so my guide Chen was working through me, and Chen basically picked up the baton and said, "We can do this. We can basically prove that there is a spiritual influence that is very, or can be very negative, that's causing a lot of these mental health problems." And then we sat down to work out how could we prove that, and how would we even look at doing that, really. And of course, the first thing was to find some clients. So you can imagine when Terry, from a kind of PhD doctorate background, went out into the kind of wide internet, he had no end of people that had or presented with pretty significant problems that kind of wanted help, really. So we sort of set about by building this protocol, and we started to look at the different layers, the different kind of dimensional frequency layers in the etheric field. Now, up until that point, really, as far as I understood, and my background was quite limited, I just understood that we've got the physical body. I kind of got the fact that we've got an etheric field and, some other fields, other vibratory frequencies, but I didn't really know what was in them and what we would find if we opened them. And this was the area of exploration, really. So Terry basically said to the guides, Chen, primarily, if we can go into someone's field, can we find trauma? Is that going to be in there? And Chen was like, yeah, we can definitely find trauma, because it's a frequency. So when we open someone's etheric field, we look in, it's a bit like looking in a kind of box. You can see what's in the box. You're not exactly sure what's in there, but you can see those things. So Terry's idea was, let's start to go through the box, basically, and pull out the worst negative blocks or traumas that are inside the field. And when we find those frequencies, we need to identify them and name them for whatever they are. And then we need to work out how we clear them from someone's field. So you can see this is quite a new pioneering way to think, really. So again, it's not hands-on healing, kind of just doing Reiki energy. This is actually interactive, sort of intellectual. But the key part of this conversation, I guess, is it wasn't me and it wasn't Terry. It was the guides, the spirit guide. Chen was going to be going in doing the work. And this is where this was quite groundbreaking at the time, because if you guys think about most healing modalities, where else do the practitioners not do the work? So effectively, you think of every other modality. If you're a hypnosis practitioner, you're driving the session, you're running the session, you're having a conversation with the client. If you think about acupuncture, you think about Reiki, you think about most modalities, you're trained to be the person that does the work. And in this version, you're not actually doing the work. We're holding the space, and obviously we're the physical boots on the ground people to be able to talk to the guides. But the spirit guides are the ones actually doing the work. And that's great. I think this is groundbreaking. And I know John and I have talked about it a lot, and we've talked to Terry. This Terry obviously sadly passed with COVID, basically. So effectively, we're now talking to him on the other side. In fact, he's more talkative now than he was when he was in body half the time. So, so he's probably sat next to Ruth in the office, because that's where he's got his chair, and that's where all of our information is. So the idea being, basically, this is kind of where we've got to. We've got to this point whereby we see SRA as this completely new pioneering organization, where we're teaching what Terry said would be the best practitioners in the world that can do this type of work to clear negative energy from people's fields, to help them to heal. And it's a twofold thing, really. When people have a spiritual clearing following the SRA protocol, obviously they get cleared of all of the negativity that's in their field, effectively. But also, of course, their frequency comes up. So their vibratory frequency comes up, and therefore the planet's frequency comes up. And Chen's said to me quite a few times recently, really, a lot of the entities that we're now connected with and working with behind the scenes aren't really here to work for humanity. as in us. They're here to bring the frequency of the planet up, because that's the big change that's required. And I kind of laughed and thought, well, there's a lot of people on the planet. We need a lot of practitioners, basically. And they're like, yep, we do need a lot of practitioners. And this is why kind of we're talking to you guys today, because effectively this is the kind of viewpoint from a spiritual perspective, that we need to clear as many people, which helps them on their own journey, on their own path. But also we're bringing the planet's frequency up. And of course, if we can do that, then we change the planet for future generations, because the negative layers that exist here won't be able to exist here if the frequency comes up. And this is what we're kind of seeing on a sort of global stage now, kind of playing out. So we as SRA see ourselves at the front line of this work, really. And again, because it is so different, and we're talking to and working with the guides, and they're doing the work, there's a big team now in spirit that we're working with at Chen and Whitehawk. Jonno's guide, we're obviously kind of heading up and running, but there's a lot of energies in that team. And you think if you join with us and the practitioners that we have, you guys that have joined with us, each one of you comes with guides basically that join that team. So this is growing at a kind of phenomenal rate. And I think it's fair to say, mate, isn't it, that we kind of struggle to keep our hands around it sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a good phrase to use. Yeah, is I mean that's because the work out there is so needed, and I think that's the thing with what we do, is that everything in the universe is energy, and therefore energy affects everything and everyone. So, even if you're going to Walmart, even if you're walking around your local supermarket, you are an energy source walking within other energy. So therefore, it's not surprising that your energy can be infiltrated by an energy that has a lower vibration, because many of these supermarkets, as an example, they only have one or two entrances or exits purely because of security. That means that thousands upon thousands of people are walking through that one door every single week. Now, you will have people walking through the one door who have the most amazing life experience and they're on a high. Other people are just what we would consider normal, whatever normal is, and other people will be experiencing issues and problems. Either way, each person will be vibrating an energy field, and you're walking in the same energy field. We do an experiment when we do in-person training about energy and about auric layers, when someone is feeling good, when someone is feeling normal, and when someone is having a few troubles. And I would guess that if you're in a crowd, a proper crowd, there could be between 20 to 30, 40 people easily within your energy field. So you begin to see how, when we go back to the question of, is there another consciousness interacting within your client's field? It's very easy to see how these things are picked up. Because if you believe that we are the only intelligence in the universe, okay, great. I'm not going to argue that point. I'm not here to argue anything, but I don't believe that. I do not believe that we are the only intelligence in this universe. And I do not believe that sometimes an individual is the only intelligence within their energetic fields. Sometimes there's another one, sometimes there's another two, sometimes there's more. So when hypnosis people, who are not spiritual in that sense, some of them, they're more scientific based, have a client and they can't work with their client because an entity or an attachment begins to take over the session, and certainly begins to take over the client when the client goes down into a lower altered condition, that then compromises the practitioner, in this case the hypnosis practitioner, because you're now connected and you're now in the energy field of that low force entity. So this is why we get contacted, and this is why we get the questions, really. And I think certainly from my point of view is I started doing this very similar time to Andy. We walk a parallel path. Everything that Andy's experienced, I've experienced pretty much at the same time as well. And I started doing this work about 20 years ago, working in healing, working in psychic surgery. And I also started experiencing attachments. And I started experiencing, if you like, the energetic dangers of working hands-on with somebody that is showing another intelligence, and it's not a nice experience. And I'm not a small lad, and I'm quite a confident guy, but it is not nice, and it's not an environment that you really want to be in when you believe that you're about to be strangled, you're being spat at, you're being sworn at by every single name under the sun, and you're meant to be in a holistic therapy session. It's quite eye-opening. So when I got to know about Andy and Dr. Palmer, I attended one of Andy's demonstrations for psychic surgery. And that's where I knew immediately I was going to work with him. And that's where I met this little guy with a huge attitude and a huge energy, glasses and a bow tie. And he introduced himself as Dr. Terence Palmer. When I walked out of there, I knew that I would work with them. I attended their first training session, and immediately I was welcomed in by Terry as one of the close-knit mediums that Terry would work with. He would be the facilitator, I'd be the medium, working effectively in Andy's role. And together there was a small group of mediums, and Terry put together 1,000 cases, 1,000 recorded cases with an 80% positive result. And I'm very lucky to say that I was one of the mediums that worked those cases with him and with Andy. But one of the things that stuck out for me was I remember sitting next to Andy in one of the sessions, and the penny just suddenly dropped, and it clicked. And I didn't really learn about guide connection. I didn't really learn about returning discarnate energies into the light, because I'd already been doing that. But something clicked, and I remember looking at Andy, and I just whispered to him, because Terry was in the centre holding court, and I just said to Andy, "Is this really that easy?" And he just laughed and said, "Yeah." That was in 2018, so 7 years ago, and I've not done any of in that 7 years. I've done thousands of cases, and I've never come off the working protocol, because the working protocol, one, is very safe. I've never felt compromised by an energy. We work remotely. That means that we have someone in here like Anne, who is in the US. That means that Anne and I can team up on Zoom, and our client could be in New Zealand. We are very safe, and the standards that we teach to is extremely high. So we have a professional team working together spiritually to enhance the clearing. So we believe, and certainly something coming from Terry, is one of his phrases, is that you cannot heal the wounded soul. So if the soul is not what we would term sovereign, sovereignty to us is an energy that is solely of its own ownership. Any healing that goes on, yes, it will make a difference, but it will make a real difference when the soul is pure and when the soul is clear. And this is what we do. And this is where we sort of came through. As Andy mentioned, unfortunately, Dr. P passed away. This all sat dormant for about 12 months. People were asking questions. People wanted to be trained, but it wasn't quite the right time. And then just searching through the internet one night, looking for a domain name, having a chat with Andy, and we came up with Spirit Release Academy. Since then, it's gone, I was going to say, incredibly well. And I'm not even sure if that is the correct phrase. I'm not even sure if that's the correct phrase. We now sit with 100 students located around the world. The reason why there's 100 students located around the world is because it works. If what Andy and I taught, and if what we didn't make that difference that we proclaim, it wouldn't work. So students are coming in and they're getting the training, they're getting the certification. They're finding out from themselves that you can work within the team professionally, safely, securely. We're dealing with some very low energy sometimes, but we work safely. and we work very, very protected. But the important thing is the recipient of the work. The positive result is usually immediate, if not within the hour, if not within 3 or 4 days, but is usually immediate. And this is why we're now getting as we get more exposed and known, more and more people are asking the question about helping somebody who perhaps has another consciousness, interacting in their field. And I work in some kind of practice and I don't know how to handle it. And this is where I sort of come back to Andy, because, the work that we're doing, the projection that we have of the academy is going to help all these people.
Yeah, it's a really good point, John. It's really well framed, actually, from that perspective. I think, again, if we go back to why this works, why does this work, and why is it so different? I think we've covered the why it's different, because we don't do it really, which is one of the funny points that we do laugh about in the office, that effectively we're the boots on the ground in the trenches, but our kind of bosses upstairs behind us are the ones that are actually engaging in effectively spiritual warfare and clearing these negative attachments. And we don't just work with attachments, remember, we're clearing discarnate spirit, we're closing portals, we're clearing curses, we're clearing interdimensional parasites. There's at least 20 levels to the protocol, so it's not just one thing that we do. And I think a lot of people think about Spirit Release Academy as, oh, you guys are the ones that remove the entities. Yeah, we do that, but we also do about 19 other things as well that doesn't really get as much kind of airtime and doesn't really get thought about. If we kind of go back to the conversation that and Johnny's framing of it, really, in terms of why we're here and probably why you guys are here, if we think about energetic space, so it's kind of like a bridge of consciousness, really. So when a client comes into a practice, or as Johnny says, if you walk into Walmart or somewhere, there's energetics exchanging there. So if a client comes into your room and you're a practitioner, they bring in that invisible field with them, which we talk about as the etheric field, effectively. And anything that's in their field, all of their pain, trauma, negativity, anger, rage, all of the things that are baked into their field, all of those frequencies arrive in your space, basically. So, of course, that interacts with your energy. So if you're not in your protected bubble, kind of sat there quite happy, their field's going to kind of interact and mesh with yours. And whatever's in their field is going to kind of overlay itself into yours too. So it's almost like a kind of Wi-Fi network is the way that I kind of see these things. It's almost like you walk into a different Wi-Fi network and you're now part of it because you're both interconnected in that way. So most practitioners that are working with clients, by the nature of the job, you're working with wounded people that have been through traumas, whether that be sort of physical, emotional, sexual, but they've got trauma, which is why they're there. They know they're traumatized, they've got problems, and they're looking to resolve those traumas. So regardless of which particular modality you come from or how you work, if you're a practitioner, you've got a person in your field, in your space, with lots of negative things in their field. And those things, if you're lucky, are just going to interact with your field. So most practitioners are going to go home after a day's work, working with a few clients, feeling tired and drained and fatigued, more than likely. Of course, if what's in that client's field is very negative, certainly from an attachment perspective, those attachments live in this low frequency vibration. So the first thing they're going to do is attach to you as a practitioner and suck and kind of fatigue your energy, so drain you kind of energetically because they live in low frequency. You're going to struggle probably with your client because you're going to try, if you're a hypnosis practitioner, your whole job and work is to try to get to the higher self, to have that conversation with the higher self, to surface the traumas, the problems, the things that have happened in that person's life and why they're there, to work through resolving them. But of course, you can't do that if there's an attachment in the way that's blocking the connection. You're going to struggle, and you're probably going to be psychically attacked at the same time. And this is what we're hearing every day continually from practitioners in all sorts of modalities. I'm having all of these problems. What do I do? How do we protect ourselves from these things? I really want to do my modality, the one that I trained in, the one that I love to do, and help people. But now we've got this negative layer surfacing more and more, and people are interacting and seeing it more and more, and it's becoming more and more prevalent really in society. And we all know someone that's suffering with mental health problems. We all know people that have probably taken their own lives because suicide is a big conversation. And we feel that we are very well placed to stop those people doing those things, because we know that spirit tell us, Terry tells us, White Hawk and Chen tell us, something like 99% of people that commit suicide are committing suicide because of the attachments driving those thoughts, driving those addictions, driving that kind of space, really. So if we can clear those people and bring them back to a sovereign perspective, they're still going to be challenged. They've still got trauma, and they've still been through some probably terrible things in their life, but they're not going to be self-harming, probably, and they probably won't commit suicide, and they can be helped and healed. And this is where we see our role, really, that we're effectively, Terry used to say, mate, didn't he, that we're kind of like the spiritual paramedics. So we don't perform magic. We don't proclaim to fix everyone's problems. Terry's version was we kind of turn up at the scene of an accident, basically, and pick the person off the floor, patch them up, pop them into the back of the ambulance, get them to the hospital, and then we hand over to other professionals that can take them through different healing modalities or counselling or whatever therapy they need, depending upon what they've been through. But our version is the first form of intervention to bring them back to sovereignty. And as Terry used to say, it gives someone a window of opportunity, which we think is about 5 days, really. So once a spiritual clearing has been performed on someone that has these extreme traumatic problems, and we bring them back to sovereignty, they get space to breathe, the mental capacity changes, they get a bit more clarity, still got all the same problems, just they now can cope with them probably in a different way, and we can start to invoke some different type of help. And that's, of course, when hypnosis and all of these other modalities kind of drop into place and are really productive. So that's the way that we sort of frame what we do effectively from that perspective. So if you're a practitioner and you know that in your sessions you suddenly feel dizzy or fatigued, emotional shifts, you might feel sadness, anger, a bit of anxiety, spaced out, foggy, drained. Some people have subtle physical sensations, tingling, pressure in the body, that kind of thing. A lot of practitioners tell us they get intrusive thoughts. As soon as the client's left, they're having intrusive thoughts. Everything feels wrong in the room. So again, there's a whole kind of list of kind of early warning signs, I guess, if you're a practitioner, that there's been another conscious energy in your space that hasn't left when the client left and is now connected to your field or attached to your field, or certainly working in your space. And of course, if you're working, as we all do, we're all working every day, we've got clients coming and going all day, every day. So if you're not protecting your space and you're not protecting your field, you're inviting all of these different energies in and out on a daily basis. And there's only one thing that's going to happen, and that will be that you become burnt out and probably fatigued. And worse than that, probably in a space where you start to have intrusive thoughts or odd thoughts and start to feel that you're not able to continue working. And that means that that's a practitioner out of the game from our perspective. Because the way that I think John and I see things is that we're all working together here on the planet in this particular version of our life. So we're all here for the light, we're all here trying to hold the vibration, trying to keep things positive. So regardless of what you do, if you're working with people, whether you're a doctor, a nurse, surgeon, care worker, you're helping people. But for you to do your job, you need to be protected, and you need to be able to control and hold your own sovereign energy, really. And that, I think, is what we're trying to help people understand, for one, and teach the concepts of. And then when people do understand it, try to get to the point that we can actually start to get people cleansed and cleared. And that's, as Joy said, we've got nearly 100 kind of practitioners now that are kind of very, very good in their field, are very good at what they do. And we're hoping that, this time next year we'll have like 500 practitioners, so that every day there's hundreds and hundreds of clients around the world that are being cleared of negative energy, brought back to sovereignty. And then that obviously leads us into this concept of how we connect with and start to work with the mental health arenas that Terry was so passionate to do. Oh, sorry, mate, you're on mute there a sec.
There we are. You probably preferred that.
That sounded good. It sounded fine
yeah,
to me.
Yeah. I think the mental health arena, I mean, we don't have to sit here and talk about mental health. We know how bad it is around the world at the moment. And we know the reasons why. We know that there is so much conflict and infiltration of personal space and sovereignty of land, sovereignty of life, sovereignty of energy. We haven't really got to go into that. But what we do go into is how people suffer. And, when I sort of mentioned earlier about walking around Walmart or Tesco's or a supermarket, there are people here commenting saying that you are working in an environment where there's other people. But that's absolutely great, because so you should. No one is saying that you need to isolate yourself completely, because none of this is about scaremongering. It is about understanding. And as soon as you start to understand, you can gain knowledge. And as soon as you gain knowledge, you gain confidence. And as soon as you gain confidence, you don't need to be scared, because you know why it's happening. You know what can happen, and you know how to deal with it. And none of that is scaremongering. That is about protecting your energy. That is about being familiar with your energy and knowing your energy. And that is about being sensitive enough to know when perhaps you do have infiltration and when you do have something attached to you. Because the whole thing with this is that, yes, I do believe that you can perform self-clearance, but only to a degree. What you can't do, if you have an intelligent life force working with you in a negative way, you cannot self-analyze, because your thought process is not true to yourself. So therefore, you cannot self-clear. We've gone through people that have tried to argue the point of muscle testing with kinesiology, and if your consciousness is compromised, you cannot self-clear. That is my opinion, that's Andy's opinion, and we are open to anybody being able to change it. But right now, that's still very much our opinion. So this is the thing. It is not about creating fear. It's about creating confidence. And it is about people understanding their energy and understanding how quickly you can actually protect your energy in your auric field when you go to Sainsbury's, when you go to work, when you go to Walmart. One of the perhaps worst places to go to when it comes to energy and collecting energy is a hospital. And I've been in this work for 20 years, and in 2 weeks' time, I will be in hospital. I would have gone under a general anaesthetic and I will be in a ward. And I'm not worried at all, because I know that my energy is protected. I know that I will come out of that hospital sovereign and clear. And I also know that if I'm not, I have a community around me that will jump on and support me within a flash. And this is what we have with the community that we have with all of our practitioners. So that gives a lot of confidence. That gives a lot of ability to be able to live your life and work in these environments where you're dealing with other people. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother Andy. And it doesn't bother practically all of our certified practitioners, because we know energy. We understand energy to a very high level. We know how to deal with it. But this is the thing, how often do you hear in the news that somebody has been hearing voices and they went out that day and they harmed someone? They seriously hurt someone because of the voices in their head they couldn't control. And usually the reason why they can't control it on that day is because for whatever reason, their medication didn't work, or they couldn't get their medication. They ran out of medication. So the chemicals and the medication that they were having was low in their frequency, so they couldn't perform their life properly, but it was perhaps saving them from harming others. But the moment that chemical imbalance goes wrong, this is when people do self-harm, and this is when people do harm others. But what if that chemical wasn't needed in the first place? What if that voice that was driving them crazy could be removed within an hour? This is where we come in. We have 1,000 recorded cases, of which 80% have a positive effect. And working this for 20 years, I can also state completely hand on heart is that myself and White Hawk, my guide, and the team that I work with, we are at about an 80% positive result. And we're looking to drive it. We want 85%. We want 90%. We want 100%. We have people in this group now that are working with us who are far more intelligent than myself and Andy. We know what we do and we know what we're good at. And we also know where we have to step back and let other professionals come in and lead the way forward. So we have a fantastic group of practitioners around us, PhD level students, PhD level practitioners, all driving this work forward. And I think it's fair to say, mate, that knowing what we know, which we don't always bring out into the open because there's always things going on, is that next year could be a very, very, very big year. And we need the team that we have around us because of what's going to come our way, really.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to frame it, Johnny, really. As Johnny says, of course, because we're working with spirit, we're taking, Johnny and I are at the top of this. SRA might be the kind of, the kind of front door, really, but behind the scenes, we're a lot lower down than you guys might think. Because, of course, we're taking our cues from Chen, White Hawk, and there's a group of entities above that too. So there is a kind of hierarchy, effectively, and we're the kind of visible face, and we're the people that you see. But we are dealing with and talking about some very, very powerful entities that are doing this work. And that's why it works so fast and so well. And as Johnny says, we've got a few different kind of streams of things that we're trying to do. Obviously, we're a training practitioner organization. So the idea is that foremost, really, we train as many practitioners in this modality as we possibly can. Because the way that we see it and the way that spirits see it is that this is the kind of prerequisite to any healing. So regardless of whether you were going into hospital, as John has said, for an operation, or you've got some complex surgery required, or you've got some complex health problem, whatever it happens to be, you should be a sovereign soul going into whatever you're going into. And also when you walk into a practitioner's room, whether it's for a massage or whether you're going in for some kind of deep healing from other modalities, as a sovereign person going in, you're going to get a much better rate of recovery and healing because, of course, it's just your energy. But if you're walking into any field with attachments and curses, portals, interdimensional parasites, or the whole host of other things, including AI, we're seeing AI now in people's fields. It was never there. It was never there when I worked with Terry. It was never there when we looked at people sort of 10 years ago, but practitioners are now finding AI energetic self-replicating implants in people's fields. So we're kind of moving this protocol. So the protocol that we have was the initial one that kind of was written by Terry and myself and Chen, really. And John and I have taken that, updated it and brought it forward in alignment with the guides, with Terry, Chen and White Hawk, to include some different things. So it's kind of a newer version in that way now. But the idea is that the Academy doesn't ever stop and stay static. So again, if we look back at some of the other healing modalities, they have the modality, they stop. This is what they do. They just do the same thing year in, year out, decade in, decade out. SRA is designed to work with spirit. And we're spirit-led and we're spirit-driven, basically. So we're taking our cues continually from the guides, from the spirit guides, and obviously from these other entities that we work with behind the scenes. And they're moving things forward at a rate of knots that sometimes we're struggling to keep up with. But of course, they know what's coming, they can see what's coming, and they're very aware of what needs to change on this planet to kind of bring things into a different space. So when we talk about kind of work and jobs and things, you think, we're very fortunate, I guess, now to look at ourselves and think it's probably not a better job in the world to do than working with a spirit team that can kind of foresee what's happening and invoke the sort of healing and recovery for people that are basically really struggling with the things that are going on in their lives. And, every day we all get emails, myself, Jono, all of the practitioners, you've saved my life. And I've read it so many times that it's not egotistical, but sometimes I just say, of course, because we know it works, so you expect it to work. So when Jane runs up from upstairs and says, "Oh, we got a really good email back. You've just, someone's mother's just basically sent, her kind of amazing email around her daughter or son or someone that we've done a clearing on and is now not suicidal or stop self-harming," you get to a point that you just expect it because it's so often it works. So it's not kind of, oh, wonderful. It's like, okay, cup of tea, let's carry on, another day, another clients to work with. So this is the point, and this is our job, really. My job and Johnny's job in this kind of incarnation for us is to basically bring the Academy to a point that working with spiritual entities is a normal thing. And currently it's not a normal conversation. Go out into Joe Public world and talk about other entities that we work with that basically clear people of negative things. It's kind of a difficult conversation to sell. To you guys, it's not, because most of you are here because you're in that space or you're open to it, and you're obviously more forward thinking than most people. But this is the job that we've got. And obviously, these spirit teams are telling us that as things change on the planet, this type of work, is going to get to be extremely busy, and we need an awful lot of practitioners and people that can do it. So that is our kind of core job, is training people like yourselves, really. And the second part is the research, because unless we do the research and have the research written by, as John has said, people better than us, generally, PhD level people that we have in the academy, that can actually write in the way that academics will understand, that can be scientifically validated. When we get to that point, then effectively the medical health system is going to struggle to deal with us, because they won't be able to kind of nullify the work, because it would have been written by academic people like themselves. The results we already have, so we just have to basically format the results and find a way to enter into some of these conversations. But we're expecting to create a huge wave in this mental health area very soon. And as John says, next year we've got some interesting opportunities that are kind of floating, that hopefully might open the door to a tsunami of conversation, really, is what we're expecting.
And I think it's that. And the more and more people that experience this, is the more and more people then want to experience it. So it's organically growing at a great rate of knots anyway. But there's a couple of questions that come in. One, very quickly, what is the process that we work? Basically, we work as a team of two, and the third is a spirit guide. So we have a facilitator working alongside a medium. As I said, I used Anne as an example earlier. Either I can be the facilitator for Anne as the medium, or the other way around, but the facilitator doesn't have to be a medium. They don't have to have a spiritual connection. And in actual fact, we certainly do not encourage it whilst the clearing is actually taking place. So the facilitator is the manager. The facilitator is the one that manages the medium, manages the spirit guide, and manages the clearing session. It's a very, very important role. As you begin to understand what we do, you actually realize how important that facilitator is. The medium's role is simply to connect to their guide, whether it be in trance or whether it be in mental mediumship. And then as soon as the medium establishes that connection, the facilitator speaks directly to the guide. The guide will then form the connection energetically and spiritually to the recipient of the work, and with the permission of the higher self, they will go in and work the clearing. The facilitator will work the protocol, in which we have 20 plus different layers that are searched for, scanned, and repaired or cleared. So we don't go into it in too much detail, and we deliberately do not do that. The reason why is because people copy our work, and people copy our work who are not experienced in doing what we do, and they themselves end up in a lot of trouble that then myself and Andy usually then have to go in and help and sort out. We also have their clients coming to us because they did our work and it didn't work and it created more problems. That's because they weren't trained by myself and Andy, and that's because they don't understand what they're doing. So we are very protective over the protocol and who actually gets it. But once you come through the training, you receive everything that we know. Everything that we know in this work is we will share with you, we will work with you, and we will get you. It's our responsibility to get you to the standards that we require. The only thing that we ever ask from anybody that's coming through the student process is that they are always honest with us and that they work with integrity. That is all they need to do. We will do everything else. So this is the way that it works, really. We can work over Zoom. We can work with a client the other side of the world, and we can clear energy immediately. Now, that is a big claim, and I'm very happy to make it. We have an 80% success rate. The way that we're going is that we will improve that. Andy and I are very straight. We don't BS anybody, and we don't BS any situation. We do one person at a time, and we do it very, very well. That one person then puts it into their family, Their family then put it into their family and their friends, and so the work grows. So what we're doing here is a process that's very simple to do, very easy to do once you understand it. But to understand it can take time, can take some teaching, and can take a few hours of openness and working to high degrees. So I hope that helps clarify that question a little bit. And we do know that we don't give everything away. And like I say, it is very deliberate. But we had a great question also coming saying about hearing and clearing energy or situations from a historic traumatic event. It could be a previous life, something like that. So the energy carries trauma. Sorry, the energy of a body carries trauma. I think everybody can understand that. If you've experienced trauma in your life, it will affect you mentally. For those that work holistically in healing, we will understand that mental block can create blocks within the energy centers, within the energy system of the body, in the etheric, and those blocks can manifest into physical. When they manifest into physical, it can then go into illness and dis-ease. If you speak to many experienced healing practitioners, they will tell you that if somebody experiences serious trauma in their life, within 4 to 6 years, it's not uncommon for tumours to manifest. So when you're working with somebody with cancer, when you're working with somebody who has tumours, if you go back 4 to 6 years, you will probably find something that happened in their life that shocked their body and shocked their mental wellness. So if energy can create, energy can heal. If energy can manifest, energy can extinguish. And this is where we come in with doing what we do, by extinguishing the darkness with light, by knowing what we're doing, by being very confident in how we do it. And this is why we do get the results that we get, and why we have practitioners, Australia, all around the world, through Europe, Asia, coming into the USA and Canada now. So when we come back to why we're having this chat, is about intelligent energies or anything that interacts with the client. Is there another intelligence out there that's interacting? Probably. Do they need chemicals? Do they need to be institutionalized? Probably not. How quickly can it be done? We'll do it in an hour. And that's how we work. That's kind of how it rolls. And this is why it's so successful. It's very cost effective. It's very safe for the practitioners, providing you do the work correctly. Otherwise, you will become a client as well. So,
And we don't want that.
yeah, you don't want it, and it is true. So, yeah, I hope that answers those two questions for you.
That was good. I think as well, I was just going to kind of add to that. Obviously, I think Ashley popped a question about dementia. So again, if we think of everything being energy, we're looking at energy. One of the things that I think makes this protocol so good, really, not just the fact that we wrote it, which is kind of a joke, but the concept being that we're not doing the work. So we and you guys, and certainly you guys here that are practitioners, know that it's not about you. It's not how good you are that day, whether you turn up tired, fatigued. It's not about you. It's being done in a completely different vibe because it is so groundbreaking that there isn't really anywhere else you could work with other intelligent entities that are actually working with you doing this work. And I'm pretty sure if you spoke to most of our facilitators, which you're welcome to do, and ask them what it's like to be talking to a medium in full trance where their guide is talking directly to you, going through the protocol, and the guide can actually, we normally have to kind of try and gatekeep the information that the guide provides, because of course when the guides start to open the recipient's energy field, We used to call them the client, but now we call them the recipient because they're receiving the work. The client can be someone that's booking the appointment, just to kind of define the difference between clients and recipients. But if you can imagine a spirit guide looking at a person, opening their energy field, it can read everything that's happened to you, the things that happened to you when you were 2 years old, the abuse that happened, the traumas that you've had, everything is baked into that field, and the guide can literally extract it like a book and effectively read it back to you. And that was one of the things that used to fascinate Terry when he was talking to Chen. He'd say, can you tell me how many disassociated personalities we find? And Chen would say, yeah, there's two. One at 5 years old, one at 7. And Terry would say, okay, cool. What happened at 5? And the guide, Chen, would say at 5 years old, suffered some sort of abuse, generally sexual, and this is the person that did it. So we could even get to the point where the guide could tell you who actually did something to that recipient in their childhood that caused the traumas and the pain and the dissociation that then came from that, which of course then affects the whole rest of their life. And then, but even better than that, of course, the guides are then able to bring that disassociated personality, that sub-personality, reintegrate it back into the core spiritual self to kind of heal it from that perspective. And there's no other work that can do that we've ever talked about or seen. And that was why Terry was so pioneering, really, because Terry was so caught up with what was happening, he kind of forgot to document it because he was so keen to work on all these cases and get the actual research documented. And, bless him, I mean, he went through quite a few printers in the time because he was printing every case out. We in the SRI office have got 1,000 folders of Terry's up in our loft area with all the case notes for each client in, and everything was printed, documented beyond belief, really. But what he forgot to do, really, I guess he didn't think he was going to be passing, of course, but what he forgot to do was to actually write proper research papers and put that into the medical arena to actually enlist a conversation. And that, I think, is where we've picked it up now. We're at the place whereby we're ready to start this. We're ready. We've got the practitioners behind us, got some fabulous people working with us as well, so we can actually start to put conversations in front of the medical profession. And we do have medical people in care now starting to talk to us behind the scenes. They're all a bit worried. They're kind of raising the flag to say we're interested, but they're interested. You look at all of the soldiers that come back from war with PTSD, yeah, they've seen terrible things. They've seen their friends die. They've seen horrific things that humans probably shouldn't ever see. But they also bring back entities with them from the battlefield, because that battlefield is an energetic space. And if we go along with the fact that negative entities live in this low vibratory frequency, where are they going to be? They're going to be in a war zone because people are dying in pain. People are in fear. So, of course, those types of energies are attracted to those spaces. So again, from our perspective, when soldiers come home from war, the first thing they do is go back to their families. The first thing that should happen, in our opinion, is they should be cleared spiritually to make sure they haven't brought things back with them they didn't go with. And those negative things that come back with them are going to affect the family and bring chaos into those families. And we've worked on untold numbers of people with war veterans that are coming back with mental health problems, and we all know the massive problems that war vets have. So they go off to war positive and happy and, fighting for their country and for us, I guess. And they come back with these traumas and pain and PTSD, and there's no help, or the only help doesn't really work. And that was where Terry saw this. So he saw this like probably 10 years ago. And then eventually we had a guy called Mike, who was a British soldier. He'd been to war, PTSD, come back. He'd been schizophrenic for years, really, 20 years. Tried to commit suicide 3 times, was on every medication you could possibly throw at the guy. Terry invited him down to a workshop in Corsham, and within 1 hour of running through the protocol, no voices. And that continued from there on in. He sat in the kitchen and cried to us and said, why does nobody know about this? Like, I've had 20 years of misery, and you guys in 1 hour have resolved the problem. And Terry sent a film crew to see him a few weeks later to check that he was still voice free, which he was. And that video and that documentary is on our YouTube channel under the Hearing Voices section. But this is work that has to be picked up. It has to be promoted, because this really changes people's lives. And if you think about it from a cost perspective, imagine the cost to the health service in the UK for Mike, one person. Imagine the cost of a 1 a 1 hour appointment with one of our practitioners, $150 to be voice free, or 20 years of medication therapy. He'd been sectioned umpteen times. Imagine what the cost just for that one person is. So we're kind of expecting that the medical system, certainly in the US, your guys, the insurance company should be knocking our door to have this conversation, because just from a financial perspective, this is immensely cost-effective work, and that's why we think eventually we are going to knock down some of these doors, because what we're able to do is so pioneering and so groundbreaking, it can't be hidden, really.
And this is why we're here, so that it's not hidden. Well, Andy and I have been working this way for years. We now have many practitioners coming through the process, and those that are successful that have come through the process already and working as working practitioners. So we all understand how big the world is and how the world is being affected at the moment. The phrase we use is that if you hear the call, we're not here to sell anything to anybody. And in fact, we don't want people that are not right. So we turn people away from our courses. But if you think you are the person that can do this, then we want to hear from you. We will decide how you fit with us, and you will decide how we fit with you. Together, there is a partnership from day one. We will be honest and we will be straight with you, and we expect nothing less in return. That way, we have a partnership already built on trust. If you think you could be a facilitator and manage the session, we want to hear from you. If you think that you are a medium and you can work with your spirit guides, or you're an energy healer and you work with spirit guides, we want to hear from you. We are a teaching academy. Yes, we do the work ourselves. Yes, we're working practitioners, but yes, we teach as well. Ongoing, you will be in the community if you choose to be, and we will continue supporting you as you will continue supporting us in our drive to get this into the mental health charities and into the sectors throughout the world where it's so desperately needed. If this is for you, we do have a shorter courses coming in at the moment. We have been asked a number of times to produce a short course. Our courses are 8 weeks at the moment, and in November we have two 3-day courses. The theory is done in your own time, and then you come and do the training with myself and Andy, or the senior trainers that we have within the academy. We have 2 courses, one that is timed in the UK and Europe, and one that is timed for the convenience of the US, Canada, and North America. So if you are hearing the call, please go on our website. Ruth will pop the website in the chat, and please book a consultation call with me. Together we'll have a chat. Together you will work out whether we are right for you and whether you are right for us. In November, so many companies have a Black Friday. We don't have a Black Friday. We have a Light Friday. So anybody that registers for a consultation call by Monday, so over the weekend, will receive a third off the cost of that 3-day training course in November. So it's a big saving. We've got people that are already showing interest in being on it. In fact, we've got people that are already signing up and paying for our June course next year, and we haven't even advertised it yet. So you can see how important this work is, and you can see that we are attracting the right people because those people are already demonstrating the commitment that they have to come into the line of work that we do. So if this is for you, have a look at our website. You will very easily find a consultation call with myself. It's on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday for the actual training. Please go on. Ruth has put it in there already. The link is in the comments. If you book the call over the weekend, we can chat at a time to your convenience next week or the week after. So we're not saying that we have to talk to you by Monday. We're saying you have to book a call by Monday. We need practitioners, if you think that you're the sort of person that can come in and make a difference, and a real difference, then we'd love to just sit down with you for 15, 20 minutes, have a chat, and see how this may or may not work out for both of us. And if there are any other questions, by all means, shout them out, because that's why we're here. That's why we give our free time, because we want people to hear about the work. We want people to be able to ask questions. And as the practitioners on our pages know, or sorry, on this group already know, is that if we are asked a question, we'll answer it. And we will tell you exactly how it is. So please, if there is anything else, just let us know. Otherwise, we have probably said what we needed to at this stage. And we have people that are messaging us saying thank you very much. They need to move on as well. So it looks like the meeting has come into an organic close. But honestly, for the practitioners that we have worked with already that are on this group, we notice everything. We see everything. Thank you so much for your continued support. And you are a huge foundation stone in giving myself, Andy, and the Academy the strength to do what we need to do. For people that are coming through the student base at the moment that are on this course, we can see you coming through. And very soon you are going to start making huge differences. In our training, we talk about one starfish at a time. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of starfish waiting for you to be certified. We know you're going to make a difference. And to everybody else that's come in here to listen, to just sort of sound us out, whether you think what we're saying is true or not, to me, it doesn't matter. I know that some of the stuff that I talk about is really unbelievable, but that doesn't matter to me. The only thing that matters to me is the feedback from the recipient. Everything else is immaterial. And at the moment, the feedback that I get, the feedback that we get, far outweighs any personal belief. And I do believe it because I've seen too many experiences that I can't go any other way. But you'd be very welcome to come in and test it for yourselves. Dip your toe in the water, see what it's like, and we'll be open and honest with you. And if you really think you can come into this environment, please book that chat, because we would very much welcome the opportunity to speak to you directly.
Yeah, I think it's also worth saying, if you're in the UK and you're in our area, kind of, we're just outside Bath, basically, we've got a nice office, a castle. Not many people have a castle as an office. We do realise how lucky we are every day when we wander in and we look at the thickness of the wall and we hear the music playing upstairs that nobody else can hear, quite loud generally. I think this is a cool place to work. But if you're in the area, you want a coffee, you want to come and chat to us, you want to say hello, or you're one of our practitioners, we've got a lot of people now that are about. So, the office address is on Google Maps. You can find us basically. We're kind of not hidden at all. So if you want to come in and just talk to us or you're about, then do that. Let us know. Ruth is generally there. She does make good coffee. We do it as well sometimes, to be fair. But Ruth is the expert coffee maker. So we're open, we're honest, and we're open to conversation. So if you want to chat with us, find a way to get in contact, even if you're not ready right now to do this type of work, but it's on your timeline, it's on your path, you want to have a chat about it. We've basically recently updated the website with a whole year's worth of courses. So we know that one of the things that we've not been great at doing is basically setting the stall to put the courses in. So we kind of release courses and say, oh, it's in 2 or 3 months. And lots of people have kind of messaged to say, I need more time to plan, or if it's an in-person course in the UK, I'd quite like to come. I'd like to see some of the sites, but I do need to plan that in. So we basically put a whole year's worth of course dates now on the website. So every course that we're planning to run is on there. So you guys can plan things. You can work out your schedules. Obviously, it's easier and cheaper booking hotels and things, which is what we're finding is that, as Jonno said, people are booking the in-person course now, which we've only just released, that we haven't actually kind of talked about at all, but people are planning to come on it. And people are paying for it as well. If you want to do a pre-payment plan, so you pay in advance because it's easier for you to do that, then, we're very open. We're not a kind of massive corporate. Jonno and I basically run SRA, so we decide what happens every time for everything. So if you've got payment methods that work better for you than ones that we offer, we can talk about it and discuss it. So we're open to any conversation really that you guys want to have, because our job is to facilitate training people, and our job is to basically move this into the kind of the world stage of mental health, hypnosis, psychiatry, of course, as well, which was Terry's big area. So we've got sort of 3 big milestones to start to move into, and we can only do that with people like yourselves. So there's no better job to do, in my opinion.
To be honest, it doesn't even feel like a job.
Yeah,
It doesn't. It doesn't. And like Andy said, you turn up in the morning, you get out your car, and you face this blooming castle. And the first thing you're doing is you're walking up a spiral staircase in a turret, and it's just surreal. But one thing that I did miss out. So Isabel, thank you very much. The 3-day course, the theory part is in home. The practical part is live via Zoom. So we do it live via Zoom. You can be in your own home, the comfort of your own chair. You can be anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter. You will work with myself and Andy if you're going to come in on the UK timed course, or if you wish to have the convenience of the North America, USA, Canadian timelines, then it will be with senior practitioners and senior trainers through the academy that Andy and I have worked with for a good 6, 7 years. So 2 very, very respected people in the academy, Tara and Natasha, and they'll be taking that on as well. And we also have other trainers that are coming through with accident experience coming through next year. So everything we're doing is looking to make the process smoother and more professional for practitioners to come through, so that they can then take this work out into the big wide world, because the big wide world is crying at the moment. And this is one way that perhaps helps to mop up those tears and create a higher vibration. So unless there's any other questions, we'll wrap this up, and we'll say thank you very much to everybody who attended. Your support is always incredible and humbling. And hopefully we shall look forward to calling some of you colleagues and practitioners through the academy soon. So have a wonderful evening, everyone. And certainly from me, thank you very much. And we shall look forward to working with you and speaking with you again.
perfect. Thank you, folks. Bye-bye. We'll catch you again soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.